Welcome to Round Hill Radio. Through our conversations, we discover the holy and the ordinary, look for moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about when we talk about faith. Hey, Lillian.
Hello.
Welcome back. We're so glad to have you back on the podcast. And we are recording remotely today. I had talked Lillian through the whole spiel and setup because the heat source well construction project, which is very exciting, is going to do wonderful things for our building, has moved inside this week. And I think you were texting me the other day that there were people in your office walls.
There were. It is very loud, and they have a lot of different rooms in the basement that they're traveling through.
Yes.
But it's very exciting, but also a little distracting.
A little distracting. And if you are a longtime podcast listener, you know that the studio is also in the basement. So that would have not worked great. So we are remote filming today, as Ed and I have been known to do on occasion. So our audience is used to us now. So our reading this week is from, you might see a dog go in the background, by the way, from the book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, verses 11 through 20. Let's rock and roll. When I, Nehemiah, reached Jerusalem and had been there for 3 days, I set out at night, taking only a few people with me. I didn't tell anyone what my God was prompting me to do for Jerusalem, and the only animal I took was the one I rode. I went out by night through the valley gate, past the dragon's spring to the dung gate, so that I could inspect the walls of Jerusalem that had been broken down, as well as its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Then I went on to the spring gate and to the king's pool. Since there was no room for the animal on which I was riding to pass, I went up by way of the valley by night and inspected the wall. Then I turned back and returned by entering through the valley gate. The officials didn't know where I had gone or what I was doing. I hadn't yet told the Jews, the priests, the officials, the officers, or the rest of them who were to do the work. So I said to them, "You see the trouble that we're in. Jerusalem is in ruins, and its gates are destroyed by fire. Come, let's rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we won't continue to be in disgrace." I told them that my God had taken care of me, and also told them what the king had said to me. "Let's start rebuilding," they said, and they eagerly began the work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and made fun of us. "What are you doing? Are you rebelling against the king?" "The God of heaven will give us success," I replied. "As God's servants, we will start rebuilding, but you will have no share, right, or claim in Jerusalem." I'm struck by the first-person narrative in this.
It is very, to the extent where in the 52 for the journey, they have to put in parentheses Nehemiah, because the entire story is told, like, I'm Nehemiah, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's like his journal.
It is. And even... Sorry, I'm laughing because in the last chapter, the book of Nehemiah ends by him saying, he's like, "Well, I did everything good and I provided for this. Remember me, O God, for my good." So it's really at the end, he's like, just for the record, I did everything right.
In case you missed it. Nailed it, guys.
Nailed it, guys.
I did all the things. I checked all the boxes.
He's like, I was really trying.
I was really trying. Isn't that? Can I put that on my tombstone? I really tried. I really
gave it my best shot.
I really tried, guys. For sure. Oh my goodness, I love that. So our question in our 52 for the Journey book, which I'm sure you're all following along with at home, says, Nehemiah was a community organizer. What strategy did he use to begin rebuilding the devastations of Jerusalem? And then there's, of course, our journaling space afterwards. And, I always think about with our journaling space, you can answer the question, of course. Some of them are more reflective. Some of them are more like, what did you feel about this? Or what did you see in this story? I think it's really, I kind of enjoyed him like walking around and like checking the gates and like checking things and seeing, like, taking stock of all of the destruction, frankly. It's sort of interesting with all the names of the gates and, you know.
It's very in depth. And I've heard some people reflect on, like, is the symbolism of which gate he's going in and out of.
Mm-hmm.
I could have looked into that more, but I was also just like the detail, and then he gets there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ratio of description to kind of how this happens to to like, he goes up and he tells everyone we should rebuild, and they're all like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, that went very well for you.
That went great. Yeah. He's like, we get three paragraphs on inspecting the damage, and then like 2 sentences on a rallying cry. Great. I'm sure it was, some great monologue, and it was very inspiring. And he's like, yeah, so I told them to do it. And they were like, yeah, great, no problem.
Let's start.
I mean, I guess if you got it, you got it, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's always interesting when people tell their own story, what they include and what they leave out. So you kind of always wonder, like, did it go that smoothly?
What was the most important part here? But,
yes. Yeah. Sort of telling his, that we did a few podcasts many moons ago about like the stories we tell ourselves. And so I think that's very interesting that Nehemiah is sort of like telling his story, obviously from his perspective.
And also from the perspective, at least a little bit, of having already done it.
Sure.
So there's parts that he can kind of simplify because he knows it works out.
Right.
But
yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's how I always think about how when I look back on something, how much like time gets compressed in memory. And then you're like in it and you're like, oh, this is taking forever. And you look back, you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Meanwhile, you're like dying inside.
Oh my God.
Is that just me with my impatience? Please tell me I'm not alone.
There's also so often, at least for me, when I'm in the middle of something, I'm like, I have no idea where this is going. Mm-hmm. And then I reach the end and I'm like, well, there's nowhere else it could have gone except right here. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Obviously, this is exactly where I need to go. I texted you a couple weeks ago, the creative process.
It's very true.
Which is like, I am great. I'm going to do this. This is going to be great. Oh, this is awful. And then, everything's fine.
Everything's fine again.
Everything's fine again. Which I think of often because it's amazing how often, at least for me in my own creative process, like I go through the like, it's going to be amazing. It's terrible. I am terrible. Everything is terrible. Oh no, everything's fine now. And magically.
Not to drag it back to Nehemiah, he does not narrate that part. He mostly narrates like, this is the problem and this is the solution we came up with.
Yeah.
And wow, I wish that was all of our experience.
Right. I like that you almost apologize for bringing it back to the topic of the podcast. Sorry to put you back on topic.
Not to put a damper on things.
A damper on things and actually talk about the thing you're supposed to be talking about today. So you are preaching on this Sunday, and I happen to know that you have already written your sermon.
I do.
You show off.
We have this is a fancy week where people who come in person will get to hear a different sermon than the online one.
That's right. This is a fancy week. So you are preaching the online sermon, and Ed is preaching the in-person sermon, and
that is the plan.
And I'm on vacation.
Woohoo!
Air quote, as much as one can vacation with a toddler. So I'll be at home saying, good luck, guys. So how did you approach this story? Like, what jumped out at you? What did you feel like you wanted to share as part of this story?
Yeah, as I was reading it, I was reflecting on how serendipitous it is that this was chosen for this season in the church's life.
Okay.
Because Round Hill is going through a visioning process and is going through a strategic planning process that is going to involve the whole community, or everyone who joins us. Please join us in our visioning process.
Yeah.
And so Nehemiah in so many ways is kind of this step by step, or the kind of message that the book of Nehemiah is trying to say is, essentially, if you're doing God's work, it'll happen. Like, it'll work out. It's not easy. It won't be straightforward, but it will work out and you will be able to do amazing things. And so having it be, and there's kind of different parts of the story that point towards different struggles, but also different strengths in terms of creating this new image. So I was really amused by the fact that it just so happened that this was for this week where we are looking at our walls. And hopefully when we come to the crowd and we say, let's rebuild, everyone's just as enthusiastic.
Yes, let's do it. Let's dive in and build the things and make the things happen. Yeah, I love that. It's funny, you were mentioning that before, and I was thinking about how this keeps happening. Like how the scripture we chose lines up with the weeks. And I don't know if you know this, but we were actually so this launched Advent 1 of 2024. I don't know if you know, but we were going to launch it September 1st.
Oh my gosh.
And then it shifted 3 months, which, don't get me started on having to redesign this. That was kind of a thing. But I don't think it would have aligned in the same way. Oh, I know it wouldn't. If we hadn't made that choice. And that choice was very much like a bandwidth choice of where we were as a staff. And like we needed a minute to just like get our ducks in a row.
That's a Holy Spirit thing.
Isn't that so cool?
Honestly.
I know.
That's when you go, I wonder if something about this was meant to happen.
And it's like, if, people who've been listening to the podcast a lot will hear like multiple stories and multiple times where things have aligned in funny ways. And didn't Ed preach on, let me get this right. Ed preached on your first Sunday here. He preached the same scripture he preached his first Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really roundabout way of saying it, but it was very cool.
It is, yeah.
And how could that have we could never have planned that because you weren't even hired yet.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it keeps happening over and over again. It's very cool. Very, very cool. So what other things were you thinking about with this one?
Yeah, I was looking at it on the whole. And so thinking about the kind of mirroring to the journey that we do in community to kind of find our purpose, but also thinking about, Nehemiah's journey as an individual trying to find his purpose. And last week we were kind of infused, like, what are the feelings here into Esther? But as I was reading Nehemiah, I was like, I wonder what he's feeling. I wonder what this call is meaning. Because not to jump around, in the first chapter, between when he hears about the walls of Jerusalem being in rubble and between when he talks to the king about it, that's 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Of just him thinking, presumably. And so I was, I actually talked about this with some of my friends. I was like, how do you think about finding your purpose? Or how do you relate to your feeling of call or vocation? And that was kind of one of the other questions that like really came up for me is we also all individually do this wrestling with either knowing what we want to be doing or have no idea what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because, we actually did a whole series on calling, both in the podcast and in worship. And I think I'm also drawn to this idea that we have multiple callings in our lives. And like mini calls and big calls and all sorts of different like nudges, if you will.
The nudges are real.
Yeah, right.
I had in one of my classes at Divinity School, I had one of my friends refer to God as, I forget if it was like tricky or sneaky. And I was like, You're not wrong.
You're not. I mean, I will be honest. I wouldn't mind like a burning bush sometimes. I wouldn't mind just like a big voice, just being like,
that would be so much easier.
I would appreciate it. I like clarity. I like,
but
like
usually when you get that call, it's like the thing with, oh, well, we can't publish this now. It's too much work. I guess we'll have to push it back 3 months. And now everything is lining up in these like weird serendipitous ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, thanks, I guess.
Yeah. And a lot of times like this, like you don't know what's going on and how it works out until much, much later. And you're like, you're just kind of doing the thing and moving forward and trying to do your best and listen to the nudges and try to take care of yourself and your friends and your family and your neighbors and all the things.
And it also like asking for help and having people guide you. Like in Nehemiah never talks to the king. The king sees him and goes, you look sad. Why are you sad? And he tells the truth of like, I am sad because of this thing that I heard about the walls of Jerusalem. Do you think you could help me? Mm-hmm. And so it's having those other people helping you, but also just noticing things about you, which, boy, oh boy, sometimes they do that. And it just takes time, and it takes support, and it takes people and reflection, and oftentimes it takes a lot of material stuff too, which I think we can gloss over when we talk about call. There's all sorts of things in your life that can get in the way of being able to pursue something. Sure. Silly things like needing food or like to pay your rent. What?
Yeah, I think, and it's, when you feel the nudge and it's not quite maybe convenient, or it's decidedly inconvenient. It definitely can be interesting. And I think, we have these different seasons in our lives. And I think about how we kind of go through different phases. And I think it's about the listening, right?
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I'll draw attention to in Nehemiah is like, the journey is not just up the whole time. It's not like this constant improvement. Mm-hmm. They rebuild the walls, and they like get all the rules down pat. Everyone's like all great about it.
Yeah. And
then in the last chapter, Nehemiah comes back 12 years later, and everyone's like doing all the same goofs again. And so the last chapter, it struck me out where I'm like, there's always going to be a time where you feel on top of things, and you're like, well, I figured it all out. And like 12 years later,
12 minutes later,
the line I said in the sermon, spoiler, the line that I said in the sermon was, 12 years later, someone's going to be stomping on grapes on the Sabbath. Like, just because we're never done. Mm-hmm. We're never done hearing our call. We're never done figuring out our different purposes. We're never done figuring out the best way that we relate to God or have our spiritual practices or make meaning. Mm-hmm. It's constantly unfolding, and I think that's kind of fun, but when you put a lot of pressure on yourself, because Nehemiah is a little judgy. He like does have this like very rigid, he was saying about himself in the book. He's like, I'm good. I tried to fix it. I'm good now.
Yeah.
And so like, it's this balance of making sure that you keep listening, but also not knowing that sometimes that happens.
It's really interesting. I like this idea of that you were bringing in earlier about, the people around us and how they can be part of the nudge. They can be showing us where we can be more of service, where we can be more loving, where we can, pass on. I've been actually reflecting kind of a little bit as I'm in this kind of like middle part of my career in life, how many people have been so generous with me, both, spiritually, emotionally, financially, frankly, just the amount of generosity I have been on the receiving end of is incomprehensible, if I'm honest about it. And so I'm now at this point where, as a parent and of a little chaos gremlin, thinking about how I can then start to be that person for other people really intentionally. I've kind of done it, thought about it over time, and I'm like, no. Get serious about it. You know what I mean? This idea that like it's time to extend that generosity forward in whatever ways I can, possible. I've just been thinking about that, and I think that's one of the ways that our villages and our communities show us what we can do is also by how they model. Like our Round Hill community is so incredible. And when I first came in 2016, were just, it was like, a job, but it was a community, a true meaning of that word. And so now that we're opening our arms to new folks, we're so excited to have you, thinking about like, how can I then be that? Because I've been here for 9 years, which is insane. And so it's like, okay, well, someone said I had institutional knowledge the other day, and I was like, well, I have never been associated with that word before.
You're like, surely I just started here like couple months ago, years ago. I don't know.
In my head, I think I still think I'm like 25, so that's a different problem. But because I'm definitely not. But it's so interesting how our communities can show us what they need. I think sometimes you get like you're in a group and there's like a leadership void. Yeah. I feel like sometimes you get in a group and there's like a love void, and you can try to fill that, which is always a good goal to have.
Or even another thing I think of when I think of that like community and generosity is like how many people who just by saying like, oh, you're really good at that, or like, oh, I've noticed you really look happy when you're doing that. I think that might be something to pursue. And how often those like little comments like radically shift the course of your life, or just like a little extra when someone approaches you with a question, or when you approach someone with a question, having that little bit of extra care and respect as you get that answer, it can like shift your whole career, or it can shift your whole life, or your, oh, now I'm like involved in this whole community because I asked one question one time and someone answered it with their whole heart.
Wow. That sort of butterfly effect, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I could definitely say that's 100% why I'm a musician today, is because I had people when I was younger being like, wow, you're really good at that, or like, you seem really happy, or like little comments like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Just guess that's what I'm doing now.
You're like, I'll take that and run with it.
Yeah, that seems fine. I was like 8, so it's so interesting. I love that. We, as expected, disclaimer, folks, when Lillian and I were first discussing being on the podcast together, we were like, we are going to go on tangents and Ed is not here to bring us back. Though I do commend you for bringing us back earlier, and you were doing a great job of keeping me on track, and I thank you for it. You're doing a great job. All right. So time to wrap up. Do you have a closing thought for us today that you could leave us? A piece of wisdom, a thought to consider? Pick your fancy.
I would say, and, I'm a younger person, so people look at me and they're like, yeah, how wrong can life have gone? I don't know. But there's this element.
It's quite all right.
What I'm saying.
Sorry.
There's this element, the thing that I'm kind of coming to is you're never done living. And that means something very different from me, who is at the beginning of my career, to you, who's in the middle of your career, to someone who's finished their career and is starting a new chapter of their life, or who has thought that their life, oh yeah, I've lived most of that, but nobody's done. You're not done yet, and God is not done with you yet. As much as sometimes we wish we could get out of it. We wish we could be like, I did my time. Sign Nehemiah. I did my time.
I tried my best. I'm done now. I clock out.
there's always more, which is kind of terrifying, but also beautiful.
Yeah. And I think we always have something to give, and we always have, even if it's as simple and beautiful and complicated as friendship.
Yes.
That everyone has a beautiful place in community. And that's, I think, that's what I think we need more of in this world. And I think we can foster it one little conversation at a time. And like you said, being more mindful when we speak to each other, even just for me, it's being fully present in those conversations is sometimes hard. And I think that's always such a good reminder to me to be, because you never know.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Another thing that I mentioned is there are chapters of Nehemiah where it's just people, it's just lists of names and what they're helping with. So it's like, this guy's helping, and next to him, this guy's helping, and next to him, this guy's helping. And it's just a full page.
Yeah.
And I just, that is so much how it works.
Yeah.
Is you're doing your thing, and right next to you, someone else is also trying, and right next to you, someone else is trying, and we're not building it alone.
Right. I think about the bulletin every Sunday, and there's always a long thank you section of all the people who volunteer their time and energy and beautiful talents to make it happen, because the staff cannot do Sunday morning alone. It would fail amazingly.
So the balance of, we're never done, but we're also never alone while we're doing it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that, Lillian. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love that. I'm going to think about that for a while. And I hope you guys will join us back here next week for more Round Hill Radio. Round Hill Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Round Hill Community Church. For more information, please visit roundhillradio.org.
If you enjoyed this podcast, there are a few things that you can do that would make a big difference to us. Like the video, subscribe if you aren't, and click the notification bell and select all. Thank you.